Hello and welcome to Pick Yourself, the podcast that helps you build and grow your electronic music career. You will learn the strategies, mindset, tactics, and tools that you can implement today to break through tomorrow. My name is Philip. Now let's get right into today's episode. So welcome to episode 14 of the Pick Yourself podcast. I'm happy to have you here with me again, week after week. This show comes out every Tuesday, so stay tuned for that. Mark it in your calendar or simply subscribe to whatever podcast app you're using. And if you like this show, I would encourage you to please leave a review of the show because that helps me reach more people, and that would be awesome. Since this show is free, I would feel very, very blessed. And before we get into today's topic, I just wanted to quickly thank everybody who dropped me an email after the last episodes. I personally thought they were quite theory heavy, so I wasn't sure if it resonates with you. But it seems like you enjoy this stuff a lot. So Seth Godin's Tribes theory and Kevin Kelly's 1000 True Fans concept in the episode before. I'm really happy that you are open for that kind of deeper level stuff. Yeah, and I'm going to do stuff like this even a bit more. But I'm also quite happy to take on whatever topic is interesting to you. So please feel free to reach out via email, philip@copilco-productions.com, or you just go to pickyourselfpodcast.com and leave a comment below the episodes. And I'm really curious to find out, what are your struggles? What do you currently deal with? What would you like me to discuss? Or which types of guests would you like to see on the podcast? So don't be shy. Drop me an email, philip@copilco-productions.com. And I read everything. I probably will also respond, maybe within 48 hours, because right now my studio is incredibly busy. And I look forward to hearing from you. And if you're the kind of person that enjoys implementing things from the podcast, I highly recommend you go to pickyourselfpodcast.com/free, because there you get a free PDF that's called The 7 Strategies of Highly Successful Electronic Music Artists. So go grab your digital copy and let me know what you think about it. So now let's talk about the topic of today's episode, and that is a meaningful social media strategy for DJs and electronic music producers. And I must admit, this is a really hard topic for me. Because on the one hand, I think there are so many benefits on how to use these tools. But on the other hand, I think this can only go so far, and there's a lot of things that are way, way more important than social media. And personally speaking, I must admit that I really struggle with the addictive side of social media. So it's hard for me to have a phone in reach and not look on social media apps or sites. It's really hard for me to work in a productive mode if I don't block social media from my browser for that time. And it's not because I enjoy the content so much, it's because these companies have found out so many ways to trick our brains that people like myself are easily drawn into this swamp of things. And it feels also very unsatisfying. So this makes it a really hard topic because I see so many downsides, but I also see so many positives and upsides for artists who are using these tools. And therefore I was thinking, okay, if I want to cover that topic, what could be a perspective that is in line with this podcast? Because I really believe that this podcast, Pick Yourself, sends a very specific message out into the world. And that message is try to build a meaningful electronic music career and grow it over a long time in a very sustainable way, in something that adds value to the world and the people around you, and also to the music scene overall. And therefore, if we think about social media, we should also see it from a perspective of adding meaningful value to the world and giving something that matters to people and delights their day or their week, or maybe even makes them think about something a bit harder. So I did my research. I tried to find social media strategies for artists that were in line with what I wanted to express. But I simply didn't find anything that resonated with me, so I had to come up with my own method, a strategy that I think makes sense and that is also easy to remember for you, and I call it the TRAIN method, TRAIN, TRAIN method. And you can use this strategy to grow your audience, to keep it engaged, and to also strengthen your artist brand. But it's not something that will show you the latest little Instagram hack, because I don't believe that this is called a strategy. Yeah, this is a little scammy tactic that will be outdated in a year from now, and it doesn't make sense. My strategy, the train method, is something that will stand the test of time and work in whatever social network comes in the future, because there are some underlying principles that just make sense in a broader scale. And in this episode, I'm going to show you the 5 critical aspects of the train method, and I'm also going to show you how to implement that. But before we come to that, let's just have a quick look at my research that I've done. Honestly, I was shocked. If you Google something like Instagram strategy for DJs or social media strategy for electronic music producers, there is so much bad advice popping up. It's incredible. So first of all, there isn't any real strategy out there, because I don't think that a collection of little tips and tricks counts as a social media strategy. No, and I also don't think that it's a good strategy to just repost or comment on stuff by big profile DJs and producers just to steal some reach and hopefully have some people find out about you because you've made such a great and brilliant comment. I mean, honestly, if that's the way you want to grow your audience, then good luck. This is not going to work in favor of you. So that was the one side of bad advice that I found. The other type of bad advice was the super generic one, like make sure your images that you upload are in line with the recommendations of the platform. I mean, like, this isn't a strategy. This is just a best practice and is obvious to everyone. You don't even have to write a blog post for that. And please excuse my little rant here, but this is exactly the type of content that I didn't want to create, because it's super generic stuff that is made for search engines and not for real people. And this is just so far away from everything I believe in. And it makes me angry, because people are looking for good information out there and they end up with these super generic posts, or with something like the third category, and that is the hacks. So these blog posts and ebooks and so on try to sell you on the idea that you can game the system and win an advantage over everybody else on Instagram, on Facebook, or YouTube, or whatever platform. And this, to me, is a really, really shitty idea. I mean, do you really think you can get away with gaming the system of a social media platform that is worth billions of dollars? So even if you find a little loophole here and there that you can exploit right now, that is going to last for a couple of weeks or months maximum. And after that, you will for sure get punished for that type of behavior. So they just don't like that you mess with the way they display things to their users. They don't want you to trick the algorithm. What happens is that you will get punished for that behavior for sure, and your engagement rate will drop after that, your reach will drop, and basically all these efforts are in vain. And it also means you would have to invest a lot of research every single week and every single month on specialized platforms and blogs and forums just to find out what the newest little hack is and which of the outdated old hacks is going to hurt your performance right now. So please do me a favor and don't be arrogant and think you can outsmart the algorithms without getting punished. This is not going to be a sustainable strategy for you. So when I was doing my research, I actually found one article that was quite good. It was not a full strategy for social media for artists and DJs, but it was at least something that helps you avoid some common mistakes. This article is by DJ Tech Tools, and I've linked to it on the blog post for this episode. So go to pickyourselfpodcast.com and you will find a link to this original article. It's called The 5 Most Common DJ Social Media Mistakes, and they are listing 5 no-goes, and I totally support them. This is why I'm also repeating them here. I think it's worth reading them. So the first mistake that they're mentioning in the blog post is overhyping everything. It's the kind of big news coming soon post, or about to drop this really big project that I'm working on. Can't tell you the details now. So this type of stuff is really embarrassing from an outsider's perspective, especially if you only have like a couple of followers here and there, and you want to appear big, but you actually aren't. So this really doesn't make sense. The second mistake is not being engaging enough. So you're only using your channels as some kind of ad space for your music. So don't forget about the social aspect of social media. It's about interaction. It's about caring about the other person. It's about adding value to other people's lives. It's not only me, look at me. This is coming out now. Listen to this, listen to that. Here's my new merch item, whatever. So people are going to walk away from that. And it's also hurting your visibility. It's working against you in all metrics. So don't treat your channel as some kind of rolling ad banner or ad space. The third aspect is engaging too much, which means you're sharing everything all the time, but with very little value. So yes, you have that social aspect down, but it is probably not really relevant to people. I definitely think that quality over quantity also applies with social media. Even if your metrics look better when you post often, it doesn't really mean that there's deep engagement happening with your audience. The fourth mistake is track previews. And with that, they mean like video snippets of things that are not really up to your usual quality standard. So just because you started working on a new beat, that does not really mean that it's good enough to share it with the world. If you really produced an absolute banger track and it's 95% of the quality that you usually reach, then of course you can do a track preview and do video snippets and so on. But not something half-assed and just showing, hey, I'm in the studio again, look at me. It doesn't make sense. The fifth is really obvious. It's tweeting in anger or showcasing bad behavior. And just think about all the scandals with people like 10 Walls or other people. So offensive comments, hate speech, whatever. That really isn't a good place to put it out there. And it can hurt your career. It can kill your career potentially. But even on a smaller scale, I don't like to follow people who are constantly ranting all the time about everything. These are the type of people that I consciously unfollow because I don't want that negativity around me all the time. And I think this list by DJ Tech Tools is a very good starting point. So if you have these things down, then you're already on kind of a good way. But I also feel that I would like to add a few things to that list. So I'm just throwing it in here. These are some of the no-goes that I think you should also have in mind. So the first one that came to mind for me was jumping on the bandwagon of every discussion in the scene. Even if it doesn't really concern you. So it usually goes like this. Some big artist puts out an edgy statement, something that polarizes, and suddenly everybody feels like they have to jump on that bandwagon and either share that view or oppose it just to also have a say in the discussion, even if it doesn't really concern people, even if it's far away from what they usually post about. So just because there is a discussion, that doesn't really mean that you should blast out a half-assed opinion out into the world. If you really have a say and that is something that matters to you a lot, then of course go for it. But I just believe that people smell that inauthenticity. So when people join a discussion but they don't really mean it, they don't really have a strong opinion on the topic. The next point on my personal list of no-goes is pretending to be bigger than you really are. And this is the type of thing where people just blindly buy followers, not strategically build an audience. And it's quite strange if I see somebody with more than 10,000 followers, but I don't see any upcoming gig for the rest of the year. And that just leaves a very, very bad taste in my mouth. So I can definitely tell who has a fake profile and who really has built an organic audience. Oh, and there's also another favorite of mine, which is bragging daily about Beatport chart positions. So yes, we are all proud of you that you entered the Techno Top 100, but honestly, this is not something that is worth posting from Monday to Friday. The last thing on my list is writing things like, "What a special night" and "Best crowd ever, thanks to all the dancers" after every single gig you've played. So Buxtehude isn't Berghain, and we all know that, so please stay away from this. It probably also falls into the overhyping category from DJ Tech Tools. So I should have summarized this also there, but it's something that I wanted to point out because I read it so often out there. So now you know how to avoid the most common mistakes, But let's have a closer look at what you want to get out of a social media strategy to begin with. So the difficult thing with Instagram and Facebook and other social media platforms is that they're changing constantly. So when I started making music professionally, MySpace was still a thing. So do you even remember that? MySpace. I have seen many social media sites come and go, and the next big thing turned out to be the next big loser. So how can a social media strategy for DJs and electronic music producers stay relevant, even if the platforms are changing? So in my opinion, there are 3 major qualities that a good social media strategy should have. The first one is it should help you add real value to people's lives. The second one is it should stay in line with what you want to express as an artist. And the third one is it should be an add-on to your marketing tool belt and your arsenal, but not your only weapon. So let's quickly think and recap what social media platforms are and what goals they have. So in short, these platforms want to grow the number of active users, they want to gather as much data as possible, and they want to serve their users with the right types of ads based on that data, so that advertisers are spending more money on the platform. And all of that increases shareholder value, which basically means that the company that runs the platform will be worth more tomorrow than it is today. So that's how digital capitalism works these days, based on data. And as mentioned in the beginning of this episode, I personally have many concerns about the personal but also social consequences of this business model. And that's a whole other discussion that cannot take place in this episode. Right now, if you're an upcoming artist or DJ or electronic music producer, it's quite unlikely that you can establish yourself without at least a minimum of social media attention. So let's come back to the point here. If a social media platform wants active users, then that means you, as someone who creates content there, must ensure you put out something that is of value to your audience. And yes, you could also just put out a cat video and get a lot of attention for that. But this leads us directly to the second aspect, which means stay in line with what you want to express as an artist. So unless you're DJ Catwoman, I don't think that these cat videos would do you any favor at all. So overall, I think we're overestimating the importance of social media for DJs and electronic music artists right now a little bit. And when I hear the usual complaints about Instagram DJs, I doubt that this concept is going to last long. So the most successful artists will always be the ones who provide a holistic concept of great music, amazing personality, and also a strong artist brand. So social media is just a part of all that mixture. And I believe that it is an important part of your arsenal, but it's for sure not a magic bullet that can catapult you into the top techno charts or whatever. Okay, so now that we have an idea of which qualities we'd like to see in a social media strategy, let's now talk about my TRAIN method for social media. TRAIN, T-R-A-I-N, that is basically for me a strategy blueprint for you that will stand the test of time, hopefully. And it's easy to remember and realistic when it comes to implementation. So I'm a big fan of little mind hacks to remember things better. So TRAIN actually stands for something which is targeted, regular, addictive, inspiring, and natural. So these points on the first look, they might seem obvious to you. I mean, of course it should be targeted and regular. But honestly, there is a deeper layer to each one of these elements, so bear with me, we're going to explain everything in detail here. So let's start with the first one, which is targeted. Think of the social media strategy as a sniper rifle instead of a shotgun. So you're not just blindly shooting something out there, you're not just blindly posting something that might or might not strike a chord with your audience, and instead you're being hyper-specific, and therefore people know exactly what you're about. So you're the visionary at the forefront of your tribe. Remember the last episode about Seth Godin's tribes concept? So your followers, they know exactly what to expect from you. They want clear messages and they want new concept, new ideas. And they want to get this underlying subconscious feeling of people like us do things like this. Yeah, this is the underlying principle of this hyper-targeted way of communicating with your tribe. It's an internal narrative among your fans who constantly reassure or redefine their belonging to your tribe. So this is also a quote by Seth Godin, people like us do things like this. If they can make sense of your posts and it feels like a meaningful interaction to them, then you're doing a great job. If they're confused by you walking in one direction on one day and in another direction on the other day, then you're missing the point. Your audience will most likely move on and the tribe might or might not dissolve. And if you take a step back, a social media strategy that claims to be targeted can only be targeted if you really know your audience. How else would you be able to target them? So what are their common interests? Who else are they following? What are their values, their needs, their desires, their beliefs? It's not enough to assume you know all this. I mean, it's pretty easy to make these assumptions. But that's more like a wish list of things. That's not truth. And they don't really tick like you, so they are probably quite different from you. And still look up to you, still are interested in what you do. So you have to talk to some of your true fans. And do that after a show or do that online. Don't ask questions like, oh, what needs do you have? Directly, as that would be quite creepy. But just let them know that you want to find out a little bit more about the people that identify with your music. And ask them how they found out about you. What is it about you or your music that interests them? Who else is in their top 5 list of artists? And as soon as you start to know them a little better, and you get an idea of what your audience is like, then you can start thinking of ways how you can enrich their day with your social media activities. So what can you offer that adds value to their life? That could be something like a little recommendation of something that is most likely going to resonate with them. So a certain type of book that you read where you're quite sure that your audience will enjoy it as well. Recommending other artists that are in line with their taste. Yeah. But I'm quite sure it's not your semi-finished pasta dish with a silly emoji on top. So yeah, if that's the kind of story you constantly post, then please rethink the value of that. It does not really add a lot of value to your audience. And targeted also means focusing on 1 or 2 social media platforms at max. Okay? It doesn't really make sense to spread yourself thin and try to put out content that is optimized for every platform everywhere. Yeah. So keep in mind that all these platforms work in a very own unique way, and it's not a simple copy-paste game. So even if you can automate some of these cross-postings, that's fine, but ask yourself where your energy is spent most effectively. So where is your audience? Which platform has worked best for you so far? How can you go really deep? And what resonates with you personally? Where do you like to post? Where do you enjoy posting? And where do you get the most interaction? And which type of content works for which platform? And with all these factors at hand, you can make a pretty clear decision to focus your energy, your time, and probably also your money on 1 or 2 platforms that really make sense for you. So now let's come to the second aspect, and that is regular. So I know this doesn't come as a surprise, but the question is how regular? So should you force yourself to post daily just because this is the recommendation for the platform? Twice a day because everybody else is doing it? 5 times a day? So if you do some research, then you're going to find out about the blogs that tell you exactly how many times you should post on Instagram, Facebook, and whatever other social media platform you're on. But honestly, I think this is again one of these rules that you can ignore and still be fine. So yes, maybe your organic reach drops a little bit if you're only posting twice a week. Yeah, but just like what type of content the algorithm currently prefers, this is stuff that is changing constantly. So sometimes it's photos, sometimes it's videos, then it's written messages again, so they mix it up anyways. The time of posting, when you should post, is also changing. So all of these things have been quite under change in the last years. So you should avoid working completely against the algorithm, obviously, but also please don't try to adapt to it too strictly. With regular, I mean find your rhythm and stick with it. Okay, so if it's daily, fine, do it. If it's 1 or 2 times a week, that's also okay. But just don't take this as an excuse to only post every other month. So keep in mind that your tribe is also expecting to be in touch with you, and they will probably move on if they don't hear from you. So the easiest way to go about this is to set calendar reminders for social media posts, so you just get notified and you don't forget it, and you have an idea of what type of content works. And this way, you're building a habit of sharing content regularly, and your audience slowly learns when to expect new stuff from you. And it gets serial in a way. This is a pretty nice subconscious psychological thing that works in favor of you. So if you put out great stuff and you do it regularly, people are kind of waiting for you to put out new stuff. That's pretty nice, I think. So now that we know who we're targeting and what rhythm works for us, we can go deep into the topic of content. So what actually should you post and why is it relevant? The next point here is addictive. And that might sound interesting to you. So let me explain it a little bit. Do you have a favorite Netflix series? Maybe you have some favorite video game. If so, you might enjoy the slight feeling of being addicted to it. Yeah, and I'm not talking about actual addiction here, which is something problematic that happens with social media. I mean just content that you really, really like and where you're eagerly waiting for the next thing to come out. So in our social media strategy for DJs and electronic music producers, we want to create that same feeling of excitement and this slight addiction among your followers. So how can you do this? So if you've taken the first two steps seriously, you're already on a very good track. You're posting hyper-targeted messages in a certain rhythm, and this is your foundation. And now you can build on that and use the great art of storytelling to keep your audience engaged. And storytelling basically means inviting your followers on a journey with you that extends beyond individual posts. So let's say you have some very important gig coming up at a famous club or festival. You can tell a mini story around this topic over several days. Yeah, it's quite easy. It starts with you announcing that you're going to play there. So you share your excitement and also show some real gratitude for the things. And on another day, you're preparing your set, like mentally and physically. Maybe you're packing your vinyl bags or whatever you use. You're packing your equipment. So you let your audience have a look behind the scenes when you're packing. And maybe you can even show some emotions in there and just tell a little story about that rare vinyl B-side that you're going to play. Or you come up with an addition to your modular live rig and you show people how it works and that you're quite excited to try it out there for the first time. And you let them know how important that show is to you. And then on the big day, you can have multiple posts from sound check to meetings with other artists to behind the booth shots while you're playing. And please let somebody else take these last photos in the booth because it will be quite silly to do a selfie in the booth. Please don't do that. But yeah, never mind. The day after your gig can also be some kind of personal resume then. So you just, let it be more than this short thank you to all the dancers, what an awesome night, blah, blah. If that was a special night to you, then please show true emotions. Let people know that this was something meaningful for you. So do you get this idea behind storytelling? There are little cliffhangers between the first and the second and the third post and so on. There's real excitement, there's real emotional enrollment with you because you're the hero in this story right now. And if your social media strategy consists of many little stories across the whole year, then you're on track to build a really highly engaged following because they will come back for the rest of the story. And with story, I don't mean like Instagram story right now because as I've mentioned, I'm not talking about one specific network here. I'm just talking about the general idea of that. So addictive was the one aspect in terms of content. The next one is inspiring. Yeah. So if you want to take this addictive aspect to a whole new level, then you should try to master the great art of inspiring other people. And this might sound super cheesy right now, but it's one of the most powerful ways to use social media. Because as a true artist, a visionary who leads a tribe, it is your obligation to inspire your following. So think about all the boring, mediocre stuff that spams our social media feeds every day. And then this one amazingly inspiring thing pops up and really delights our day. Yeah, it gives you some food for thought. You somehow carry it with you throughout your day. You're telling your significant other about it. Maybe you even share it with your peers, the people like you who do things like this. And do you get it now why inspiration is so powerful? Yeah, this is something that sticks out positively from your newsfeed. And of course, it's impossible to constantly post inspirational stuff. It would most likely it would feel fake if you did, yeah. But if there's at least a high percentage of truly inspiring posts by you, I can guarantee that you will see great benefits from it. So a lot of engagement, a lot of enrollment of people. And yeah, we're all lacking this inspiration in our daily lives. So we're craving for something special. We're craving for that inspiration. And also, I think this is really going to help you sharpen your artist brand and differentiate yourself from all the other upcoming electronic music artists out there. Most of them are simply posting me stuff, but it's not about the audience. It's not inspiring people. And you can definitely do a better job here. And just to make this clear, with inspiring, I don't mean copy and paste inspirational quotes. Yeah. So behind with a nice backdrop of some super emotional, cheesy background image. No, I mean honest and deep original thoughts of you. Messages that polarize in a meaningful way, pictures that reflect your artist's personality, videos that have a certain edge or a little twist or something else that's unusual these days. Something that is personal and is really you in the deepest sense. So I really believe that inspiration is the fuel that runs the engine of your tribe. It's the one thing that we can't live without. We all crave for meaning. This is why we seek out artists and other thought leaders to help us make sense of this crazy world. I might be getting a little bit philosophical here, but I truly believe that this concept is true. So inspiration is incredibly powerful. So the next and last aspect of the train method is natural. Okay, you can relax now. This last aspect of our social media strategy for DJs and electronic music producers is the easiest one to grasp. Because natural means that you should try to let go of all the rules from time to time and focus on what really matters on social media. It's a way for you to be in touch with people who are truly interested in you. Nothing more, nothing less. So there's no point in over-optimizing your approach to social media. Just try to find your natural tone of voice, your natural rhythm, and also your natural way of sharing your story and inspiring people. And keep this train strategy in the back of your head, but don't look it up daily to make sure you're taking the right steps. Yeah? You'll be fine as long as you try to regularly post content that really matters to people, that really delights your fans in a swamp of crappy ads and cat photos. Natural also means that I don't believe in posting plans or third-party apps that schedule stuff for you. So if that helps you, great, keep on using it. But the power of social media, in my opinion, often lies in the spontaneous use of it. You're capturing moments that are happening in this very moment of your life. So just to recap this now, TRAIN stands for targeted, regular, addictive, inspiring, and natural. And now it's time to talk a little bit about implementation and action steps. So as always, I have put together 3 action steps that you can take right after this episode. And here is how to implement the TRAIN strategy in your social media. So the first action step is review your past social media activities. So you take a look at the past 6 months on your social media channels and you just try to get a feel, try to have an outsider's perspective on it. Does this feel inspiring to you? Have you managed to tell little stories around topics that matter to your audience? Does it look consistent to somebody who has just found out about you? Have you posted regularly enough? And also take a look at the data. So what do the metrics say? Has your engagement increased or decreased? And I encourage you to do this review in written forms so you have something to look back at when you do another assessment in a year from now. And that gives you the possibility to look back at your development and see what has changed over time and what things have worked for you and which things haven't. That's really valuable if you want to build a long-term, successful social media interaction with your audience. So the second action step is commit to not more than 2 social media platforms and find your rhythm. So decide which of the platforms you want to focus your efforts on. Where do you see the most engagement? Where do you enjoy posting the most? And you commit to a rhythm that feels realistic and also natural to you. and you set these little calendar reminders to help you stay on track. If you have more than 2 platforms already, then try to minimize the energy that goes into the other ones, or completely stop using them. So nothing bad is going to happen because of that. I mean, you can still leave the channels open just to save the slot, maybe for the future, who knows, things are changing. But just focus always wins over spreading yourself thin. So make a conscious decision on where to put your energy and your money. And the third step is experiment with addictive storytelling and the power of inspiration. So this works like a muscle. The more you train it, the stronger it gets. So start with a little story here and there, and you try to find your unique way of inspiring others with that story. And also try to build awareness for the things that inspire you. Simply try to have a closer look at what are the things that inspire you when you scroll through your newsfeed. What can you learn from these people, from the inspiring channels and the inspiring content? How do they package it? What happens when you engage with it? And then think back about what can you do on your own channel in order to get a similar reaction out of the people that engage with you and your content. All right, now, so that's it for this episode. It was a longer one, which is quite nice. I had a few shorter ones, and this is a long one now. And I would really like to know, how have you handled social media so far? And which platforms and strategies work best for you and why? And also let me know if you're going to implement this one, the train method. I would really love to see some examples from you really going deep into this. So thanks for your interest. Thanks for listening to the show. I would really love to see some more reviews for the show also. So just go to your podcast app and leave a little review. I would be absolutely stoked to see some comments from you. Thank you so much, and let's meet again next week on Tuesday. Bye-bye. If you have enjoyed this episode, please make sure to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast app. And you can find show notes to this episode in form of a detailed blog post at pickyourselfpodcast.com. Until then, see you next time.